Hey everybody, welcome back to Conscientious Omnivore. My name is Pal. Sorry for the poor artificial lighting, but this is the best I can do for now. I'm going to be showing you guys a recipe for something that resembles a tortilla, something that resembles a little bit of a flatbread, and something that resembles a bit of sourdough. I think it's a really great recipe. I love it. I've been making it for many years, basically as long as I've been making bread, so it's probably getting close to like 10 years now. And I think it's a really great recipe. I've done a video about sourdough bread before. Check that out if you haven't seen it yet. I'll link it at the end. But I go through a lot of kind of the benefits of sourdough. What are the differences between using sourdough as opposed to yeast for raising your bread? And yeah, it should hopefully give you guys some good background, and it also goes through how to make your own sourdough starter from scratch if you don't know anybody who has sourdough. So if you know somebody who is already baking sourdough bread, the easiest thing to do is to just get some sourdough from them, and pretty much anybody who's baking with sourdough, I'm sure will be happy to give you some. But basically, yeah, just if you don't have anybody nearby, you can just make your own. Watch that video, find out how. And then basically where this picks up is I've got my sourdough ready to go. This is a kind of a double batch that I usually make. This will be enough to raise about 1 kilogram of flour. So that's the proportions I'm going to be working with. You can obviously, take everything I do down, by a half or a quarter or whatever, just to suit your needs. Just to make it clear, I have roughly, 16 heaping spoonfuls of flour in here all together, and water, obviously. Watch the sourdough video and that will be clear if it's not clear to you now. So what you're gonna need is a really basic thing. It's somewhat like a tortilla recipe, but it's a little bit different. So I've got about 2/3 of a kilo of just plain white flour here. I've got a bunch of corn flour, and I'm going to actually use about 1/3 of a kilo. So basically, I just know this bag is 1 kilo and it's full. I'm going to just dump it pretty close to where the full mark would be. And then you would have salt and water added. But I'm going to actually add some optional ingredients. You can totally leave these out or add them if you'd like. I have roughly about 150 grams worth of oats that I have ground up here using the coffee grinder, which you guys are probably familiar with now from a lot of my videos. Very handy piece of kitchen equipment. I don't drink coffee, but I use this all the time. So I've ground up the oats. I have a little spoonful of salt in there that I just add as well. You can put that to taste. And also when I was grinding the oats, I used 1 heaping spoonful, about this size, of sesame seeds and flax seeds. So that is all being ground up with the oats, and then I just dumped some salt in there. And like I say, this part's optional, but I just think it's like a good way to get some additional nutrition into your bread. Get some calcium from the sesame seeds, get some omega-3s from the flax seeds. And unlike most tortillas, like traditional tortillas, they usually add some kind of fat, either in the form of like an olive oil or some other kind of vegetable oil, or they will also have traditionally used like lard or butter or something else. But I don't add any oil. I have done it with olive oil before, but it's really unnecessary, I think. And I just think, like, getting some additional fats from the flax seeds is a much better option. You're getting additional fiber and antioxidants and, the obvious benefits of the omega-3 fatty acids. So anyway, that's it for the ingredients. One super important note: whenever you're dealing with sourdoughs, you always want to save some of your starter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about 2 spoonfuls out of here, add it to 2 spoonfuls worth of flour here, and get this back in the fridge. You never want to use up all your sourdough because then you'll cry. I've been using this same sourdough starter for, I don't even know. So I think it's been about 8 years now, so quite a while. And yeah, the longer you use it, the more potent it becomes, and really just it's a nice thing to have, like sourdough, around. So I'm gonna save some of the starter, and then I will show you guys as I mix up all the ingredients. Like I say, it comes to roughly about, you know, 2/3 of a kilo of flour, roughly 1/3 of a kilo of the corn flour, and then this optional 150 grams or so of the oats, sesame seed, and flax seeds, and salt. Let's get going. So I've got the flour and the corn flour just kind of put out on the tabletop here. I made a big hole in the middle. I dumped all the oats and flax seeds and sesame seeds and salt in here. I'm going to stir this up, and I'm going to actually add a bunch of water. It's not very important how much water yet, because even if you make it too runny, I mean, that amount of flour is going to take up a lot of water, so we'll still have to add even more. And I'm just going to kind of speed up the video so you guys can see, you know, how I'm mixing it in. But really, it just comes down to a consistency and feel, and I'll show you guys what it's supposed to look like after I'm done kneading it together. So there you have it. This is the consistency I'm going for. You can see it's pretty soft, a little bit kind of almost like it's going to stick to my finger, but not quite. So it's pretty much exactly what I do for like my bread recipe as well. From the other video, you guys will probably see it. I'm going to cover this with a kitchen cloth and just let it rest for at least a good maybe half hour, 45 minutes. Then we'll knead it again, let it rest again, and then I'll show you guys the next step. Okay, so it's risen twice. I've re-kneaded the bread. You can see it's really nice and light now. I'm going to knead it one more time, and we're going to cut it into 4 pieces. But before we do that, I have actually got 2 cast iron pans here on the stovetop. I'm going to get these going on a relatively low heat, definitely less than half of the full power. You don't want to use too high heat in my experience, because then you're going to end up burning the tortillas. I don't really use oil at all. The oil you see in the pans is just the way I store them, so they don't get rusty. So there's just like a tiny little bit of oil in there. That's what is giving it that sheen, but it's really there just to make sure that they don't get rusty while I have them in the you know, in the cupboards. So I'm not going to add oil as we go, and you'll see that it'll be fine. The first couple obviously kind of absorb the oil that's in the pan, but that's fine, and just those first 2 are a little bit oily, but the rest you'll see are completely oil-free. And let's get to it. I'm going to cut up the bread into 4 pieces, and we're going to start rolling them out. Okay, so what I'm going to use is a very dull kitchen knife so that I don't mess up the counter. And we're going to need a rolling pan, a rolling stick, or rolling pin, not pan, rolling pin. And we're going to need some flour because we're going to flour the countertop and the rolling pin to make sure that things don't stick. And we're going to get a few of the tortillas or flatbreads or whatever you want to call these things kind of put off to the side. I'll start piling them up, and then we're going to start throwing them in the cast iron pans. And you want to wait until they're pretty much at the temperature you want. So I usually let them get, you know, hot and then start cooking them. So let's get to work. So you can see I've rolled the 1/4 of the dough into this kind of elongated shape. I've got it floured up so it's not going to stick to the counter. And what I'm going to do is cut it into little sections. Go for like roughly 1 inch, maybe a little bit over 1 inch. And what these are going to be is the individual little tortillas. The only reason I cut it into 4 is just to make the whole thing a little bit more manageable. It would be really difficult to you know, kind of get everything going in one big huge piece like that, and then to break it up. And now what I'm going to do is actually just kind of get these to the side so that they are not in my way. And I'm going to use flour pretty liberally here. You want to have flour down on the counter, and you want the piece that you're going to be working on to be kind of pretty well covered in flour so that it doesn't stick. Then you want to flour your rolling pin as well, and you're going to start kind of rolling it out. Now, I kind of like flipping it over and making sure that it's really kind of covered in the flour so that it doesn't stick to anything. And you'll see that this is actually kind of what allows me to cook it in the pan without any oil, and why it doesn't stick to the pan. So you can see I'm trying to get kind of a round shape. They don't always come out exactly round. I don't really care. It's fine. You can use your hands too to kind of stretch it a little bit. Don't go too thin. It will start sticking easier, and also if they're too thin, I find that they just get too crispy. I kind of like them a little bit softer, so I don't want to go too thin. So there you go. You can see it. It's not super thin, not super thick. That should give you a good indication of kind of the dimension I'm going for. I'm just going to set it to the side and make a whole bunch more. So let's jump back to time lapse. So I've got these 4 ready to go, and the pans are hot enough now. So we're gonna actually start throwing them in there, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. Basically the process though, if I weren't filming this, is I would be constantly kind of moving back and forth between making more and, you know, throwing them in the pan. So it's gonna be kind of hard to film the whole thing. I'm obviously not going to. I'll just show it to you guys, the process just once or twice. Okay, so let's throw some in there. Obviously I'm gonna put the big one in the bigger pan, and do the smaller one in the smaller pan. I would normally, like if I had a second large one like this, I would obviously use that one instead, because it fits a little easier. But yeah, I'm just making do with what I have. And usually I do end up making some that are a little bit smaller anyway, so it works out fine. And yeah, I'll just give these few minutes, and you're going to start seeing the dough begin to bubble up. That is usually a good indication that it's you know, ready to be flipped. And what I like to use is a small wooden spatula like this. It allows me to get in there pretty easily, and you'll see that these first 2 will obviously kind of soak up any of the excess oil that was in the pan. Okay, so they're ready to be flipped. I just checked one real quick. You can just kind of see it real quick. Hopefully it's in the shot. There you go. You can see it's starting to get nice and light and brown. The oil has you know, been pretty much absorbed, like I said. And we're just going to put this down, try to get it to fit in there nice and neat. And yeah, you basically just want to you know, you get a feel for when to flip them. But once you start seeing this nice little golden brown, you know that side is done. The other side will cook even a little bit faster than the bottom. So once you've flipped it, I mean, I think that took, I didn't time it exactly, but it was maybe like two minutes on the down, and then it'll probably be like 1 minute or so on this side. And yeah, you'll see sometimes they actually bubble up quite a lot. It depends, but they'll be pretty much ready to go in like a minute. So it's super fast to cook them. You really can't leave them you know, to dilly-dally in the pans too long, because they will burn. So usually if I'm making this by myself, like you have to really kind of move pretty fast between rolling them out and cooking them, and keep an eye on them so that they don't burn. If you know, if I'm like making them together with Mrs. CO, then it's a lot easier, because she's, you know, keeping an eye on these and flipping them, and I'm just rolling them, or vice versa. But yeah, if you're doing it by yourself, you really kind of got to move pretty quick. So let's see if this first one might be looking pretty good by now. I'll give it just like another 15-20 seconds. Should be pretty good. I guess while we're waiting, the only other thing I'll say too is if your pan is too hot, what you're gonna find is that the little bit of flour that's kind of shaking off from the tortillas, eventually, it starts building up in the pan, and it'll start burning if your pan is too hot. And a couple things is, I'm not sure how well it came across in the video, in the time lapse, but when I do roll them out, I kind of try to shake off any excess flour before I put them to the side, because you don't want just like a ton of extra flour building up in the pans. And if they do, it's actually fine. It's super easy. All you need to do is grab your favorite oven mitt and grab the pan, bring it to the sink, and just use like a clean kitchen towel. Make sure that it's not going to be something that melts, so make sure it's like cotton or something like that, or even just a paper towel, like a kitchen paper towel will work. And just rub out any of the excess flour that might be in there, and you're done. And just bring it back to the stovetop, and that's it. You don't need to worry about, see, there you go, that one's pretty much done, nice and neat. And you don't need to worry about it burning like that. This one's good too. Let's get some more in there. And you just keep repeating. So you just keep your eye on this. You'll start seeing it kind of bubbling up. Yeah, just let it go. So you can start seeing actually how it's starting to get a little bit clearer in there. That is, as it's cooking, you can start seeing this first change. Then it'll start bubbling up. Usually takes like about, like I say, maybe 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes on the bottom and a little less on the top. So I'm gonna just jump back and make some more, and then I'll check back in with you guys a little later. Okay guys, I've got about a little more than half of the tortillas done, and just want to show you the pan and the way it's looking. So you can see that there is a little bit of a flour buildup there, but not much at all, and it's really not too bad. It's not like burnt or anything. Maybe if it gets a little bit worse, I'll clean it out like I described, but you can really see they're not sticking. They're easy to take out. The flour is really doing its job, and they're really coming out nice, and the pans are totally fine the way they are. So there we have it. Don't know how many it actually made. I never bothered to count, but I mean, I'm sure we ate at least, I don't know, maybe a dozen or so. So the pile would probably have been up to here maybe, but you can see it makes quite a big batch. You can definitely feed quite a number of people on this. We usually eat it over the course of maybe 2 days, 3 days, something like that, with the 4 of us eating them. And it's actually really simple, super easy to make. It kind of takes longer to explain it than to actually do it. And yeah, they're really versatile. You can eat them pretty much with anything. I kind of think of them a little bit almost like, I don't know, like Indian breads. They're not exactly like a tortilla because it's definitely thicker, but you can see that they're really nice. They're very pliable. You could load them up and fill them up with whatever you want. You could also just kind of have them as a standalone snack. You can put peanut butter on them, throw a banana in there. I mean, you can make it sweet. You can put jam on there. You can do whatever you want. Fill it up with kind of like Spanish style food, rice, beans, whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's just very versatile. They come out really, really soft and nice. Hopefully that is an okay angle. And you can see, I mean, it's just like a really nice, really nice, easy to eat, easy to make bread. Tastes really great, super soft, very, very delicious. So definitely give it a shot. If you guys do, please do let me know how it turns out for you. And just a quick last word on the pans. You can see that I actually didn't wipe them out, so I made the whole batch without wiping it out at all. And there's a little bit of flour here and there, but it's not too bad. And what I do is once these are cooled, I mean, this is already cooled off, I usually just soak these in water for about maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then I just clean them out and I towel dry them immediately, and then I just put a light layer of olive oil in there, as you guys saw at the beginning. And that's it. Just keeps them rust free. Super easy. Works great. if you just keep an eye on the temperature, make sure it doesn't go too high. That's the key that I found for making these. And you can see really that without the oil it's completely fine and tastes great. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, please do give it a big thumbs up, and remember to subscribe if you're not signed up to my channel, and hope to see you in another video soon. And yeah, enjoy the recipe. Bye. I forgot to tell you guys one thing. What you want to do is let them cool off before you cover them with anything. So I always make sure that the whole stack is pretty much cooled off. If you cover it too soon, you will get kind of problems with moisture. The steam kind of still coming out of the bread is gonna just make them all soggy and gross. So you don't want to do that. Let them cool off. It usually takes like a couple hours. And then once they're cooled off, you can use the nice little kitchen towel that you had before and cover them this way. And then what you can do is either put them in a in like some kind of a bag, or if you have like a really large mixing bowl that you can put on top of this, that's fine too. You just want to make it so that it's airtight around there so that they don't get dried out. But do not cover them before they're fully cooled off. These are fine now, so I am going to cover them.